It's truly a privilege to be part of this conference where we can explore the progress that have been made so far, and most importantly, the next steps that we have to take together in order to further expand our partnership between Uzbekistan and European Union. Taking this opportunity, I would like to thank EUROUZ, Mr. Shaiha, for organizing this important event and for constant support and efforts to enhance trade and investment partnership between Uzbekistan and EU. Dear guests, some basic figures outlining the results of trade and economic cooperation in 2024. According to our data, trade turnover between Uzbekistan and EU last year has reached almost 6.5 billion in US dollars, reflecting a 5.2% increase. And most importantly, that our export has increased for almost 27% last year. Of course, major factor behind this result has been Uzbekistan's beneficiary status under the EU's GSP Plus platform, which have provided our companies with duty-free or reduced tariff access to European market. Today we have more than 1,000 European companies that operate in Uzbekistan, and the total portfolio of projects that are being implemented in Uzbekistan are currently above $30 billion. Of course, these projects are being implemented in different sectors. Most of the investment are being injected and attracted to energy, infrastructure, real estate, as well as manufacturing sector. Of course, we do not want to limit our partnership to the levels that we have achieved so far, because we are confident that there are a lot of opportunities for further expansion, and there are vast opportunities for increasing our trade and investment cooperation. So as we look forward towards the future, we are focusing on several key areas to further enhance our partnership. So I'll be briefly mentioning some of them that we think are very important in order to expand our business-to-business ties. First, of course, is enhancing collaboration through high-level arrangements. Last year was marked by several joint events between Uzbekistan and EU, which have played a crucial role in strengthening and deepening economic ties. One of the key milestones was the European Economic Days held last November, here in Tashkent, which Antonio Costa and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. This summit, of course, will provide an excellent opportunity to deepen institutional ties, align strategic interests of the region of Central Asia with EU, and of course explore new avenues for partnership in trade, investment, and sustainable development. Second development that we are focusing now, and we hope that it will contribute to the expansion of our economic relations, is partnership in financial sector. I'm delighted to see representatives of EIB. I was told that His Excellency David Manguzzi is here. I don't know if he's... Okay, he's online with us. So, Senior Loan Officer of the European Investment Bank. And we're excited about the continued opportunities for collaboration with EU financial institutions to support strategic projects in Uzbekistan and in the region. We are discussing opportunities for establishing a representative office of EIB in Uzbekistan, and we believe that this step will significantly improve our ability to secure financing for strategic projects, especially in areas as renewable energy, transport infrastructure, and digitalization. And last but not least is cooperation in the field of critical raw materials. As the global demand for this essential resource continues to rise, This partnership offers an extraordinary opportunity to address shared challenges and leverage our respective strengths. Uzbekistan has colossal reserves of gold, copper, tungsten, silver, and uranium. Along with the rare and unique minerals, we have solid deposits of more than 30 rare earth elements, metals including lithium, magnesium, graphite, molybdenum, and many others. In line with this, last year we signed a Memorandum of Understanding on a strategic partnership on sustainable raw material value chains with the European Union. A comprehensive roadmap for implementing this partnership has already been established. And we are discussing today with several European stakeholders, with the companies, projects to develop business initiatives on deep processing of strategic raw materials, creation of value chains, supporting responsible commercialization of mineral resources. To support this vision, recently, with the support of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and we have here my friend Andy, with the support of EBRD, we have adopted a new mining code based on leading international standards for regulating investment projects in mining sector. Dear friends, I won't take much of your time. Just wanted, in closing, confirm that Uzbekistan is keen and the government is committed to make sure that European companies feel themselves in Uzbekistan confident and they reach success in this market. So I would like to invite each company, each interested party to explore the vast potential that Uzbekistan offers as an emerging hub for investment, innovation, and growth. My team and myself are always ready to support, to provide all the necessary information and to make sure that plans of European partners and companies are implemented successfully in Uzbekistan. And I wish everybody today fruitful discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laziz Shavkatovich. Indeed, the cooperation between Europe and Uzbekistan has been growing substantially. And here we have Ambassador Toivo Klar, who is one of the most experienced diplomats of the European Union. The fact that you are here, in our opinion, is a big sign already that EU is very serious about the building relationships with Uzbekistan. Your Excellency, I'd like to invite you to make your welcoming remarks. Thank you.
Minister Kudatov, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be here with you to hear about the Uzbekistan economic update. It is a very positive sign to see so many government representatives, IFIs, and European and Uzbek companies present either here in person or then online for this event. Let me also express my special thanks to EUROUZ and to Mr. Oybek Shaykhov for his initiative, for his work to gather us here today, and not only today, but throughout the year to build the EU-Uzbekistan economic partnership. Our partnership is expanding and deepening, as we can clearly see from the intense agenda for the coming weeks and months. As Minister Kudatov mentioned, the first ever EU Central Asia Summit in Samarkand will take place on the 3rd and 4th of April and will permit discussions on our partnership at the highest level. The foreign ministers will meet on the 3rd of March in Ashgabat. And the mission by our Commissioner for International Partnerships, Mr. Sikela, to all of Central Asia in the middle of March will be a great opportunity to see how together we can make the most out of the EU's global gateway strategy in Uzbekistan. You here know much better than me about the vast potential Uzbekistan can offer to foreign investors. from a young and educated population and abundant natural resources to a dynamically growing market. We celebrated 30 years of our EU-Uzbekistan partnership last year. We have seen our trade figures grow exponentially in the recent period, thanks to the opening of the Uzbek economy and to the good use of the GSP Plus scheme. We hope to maintain this positive trend. The enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement that we hope to sign later this year, and which we hope will bring President Mirziyoyev to Brussels, will open up a new chapter in our relations. Also, Uzbekistan's accession to the WTO will surely boost our trade and economic exchange. The opening of the EIB regional office in Tashkent will add to a stronger EU presence in and engagement with Uzbekistan. The EU's goal of engagement is to contribute to the overall economic development of Uzbekistan. Following through on reforms will also result in a more level playing field for European companies, which will hopefully make more and more European companies turn their eyes towards Uzbekistan. Apart from a need for a sound regulatory framework, the EU is also well aware of the geography and the double landlocked status of Uzbekistan in the middle of the Eurasian continent. In this regard, we have increased our involvement and investments in connectivity between our two regions in the framework of our Global Gateway Initiative. The Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor has the potential to bring our regions closer together. The full implementation of this project is necessary to boost trade and investments between the EU and Uzbekistan in the years to come. Moreover, together with our member states, we have a regional Team Europe initiative on digital connectivity, which contributes to the implementation of satellite connectivity in Central Asia. A satellite-linked data infrastructure will increase the region's sovereignty and resilience. Aside from the obvious economic benefits, we see our connectivity initiatives as strategic enablers for diversifying Uzbekistan's and Central Asian partnerships, which is especially important in these times of uncertainty. Continuing on our economic cooperation, last year the EU and Uzbekistan have signed an MOU on critical raw materials, which, as Minister Kudratov mentioned, opens new opportunities for the European private sector to invest in the CRM sector all along the value chain. It is now important to advance our efforts on concrete projects. This EU support to the development of Uzbekistan at political, economic and trade level is also fully aligned with Uzbekistan's own priorities and is aimed at supporting the new dynamic policies of President Mirziyoyev. Let me conclude by thanking everyone who contributes to developing EU-Uzbekistan partnership on a daily basis, and I wish you all a fruitful discussion today.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now we will have the session which will present the economic data and we will have a discussion as we earlier mentioned. So I'd like to invite our panelists to take their seats. And Andy Aranitasi, please, Director, Head of Uzbekistan at EBRD. You can take your seat. We have here representative of Ministry of Economy and Finance, Ibrahim Kosim Hojayev, Head of Strategy Department. You can take your seat. Thank you very much. And of course, online, now we can maybe switch to the online version, Surayo. So online we have Celeste Laporte. She's a policy analyst at OECD, who is joining us from Paris. And we have, of course, the European Investment Bank, Davide Monguzzi, Senior Loan Officer of European Investment Bank, who is joining us from Italy, I believe. Welcome, dear colleagues. I will like to offer brief introductory remarks to each of you, and then we will go through a round of questions in order to really look into what Uzbekistan achieved, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, looking ahead for the 2025, but also the results. So again, this is a very content-heavy, a little bit maybe event, but I think it's extremely important. I'm hearing we have over 200 people already in watching this, that we really show Uzbekistan's situation in a very neutral and a very effective way for the companies in Europe, around the world, to see what's going on, whether to come here, what are the challenges and what are the opportunities. Andy, you have the floor. You can either, there is a microphone, you can either speak from here or there, it's absolutely your choice. Yeah, it should be working.
Should we go through my presentation?
Yes, so please put the presentation up.
Yeah, thank you.
And you have a clicker.
Okay, so thank you everyone. Glad to be here at this forum. I will present a little bit what EBRD is doing, what our view for regional economic development is at the moment. I will be presenting some charts. This is because a regional economic update doesn't come out for another couple of weeks, so even by presenting this data, I'm breaking the embargo. So, very briefly about EBRD. So this is who we are. We have 74 countries as shareholders, plus the Commission and the EIB. AAA rated, and this does not depend on the rating of our shareholders. We're independently rated now. You will see from the chart and from the blue part that nearly 60% of this is the EU bloc, so the EU 27, the Commission and the EIB, and the remaining about 40% is some large shareholders. The US is the single largest shareholder as an individual country, but the EU bloc controls about 60%. Now, this is EBRD since its inception. So we have done more than 200 billion euros of financings, direct financing on our own, without mobilization, of which in more than 7,000 projects. We are largely a private sector institution. We do sovereign transactions and well, but close to 80% of our investments overall in our history have been in the private sector. And you can see that this is also mirrored very much in 2024. We had some record numbers across the board. So the figures that you see, the annual business investment, number of operations and disbursements, these are all absolute records and usually by 25 to 30%. The figures are in euro, and on the right you will see the top 10 countries, top 10 investment destinations. We're very proud about the highlight in green at number 5. So this is Uzbekistan for EBRD. It's one of the top 5 investment destinations. We invested close to 940 million euros last year, and it's our ambition to grow this to over 1 billion on a consistent basis. 70% of this was private sector again, which is close to the EBRD overall private sector ratio. This is our geography. It's very briefly. So you can see we were created to work initially in the former communist bloc. Then we expanded in Mongolia, in Northern Africa, and you will see from the little, I think, box on the right that we expect very soon an expansion in Sub-Saharan Africa, 6 countries, and also Iraq. So at the moment we operate on 36 countries. We expect later this year to be 43. This is basically our value proposition. In order to keep it short, I will not go through it because I'm sure that the presentation will also be made available. But this is generally what we offer. our potential clients and also the governments that we cooperate with. I think the number one is very important for us to highlight. We have at least one office in each country where we operate. In some of the bigger countries, more than one. In the case of Uzbekistan, our office is based in Tashkent and we have 60 people on the ground. So this includes banking staff, this includes policy people, regional economists, etc., etc. Even our Central Asia political advisor is actually based in Tashkent. This is a summary, a very quick summary of what EBRD offers. Again, I will not go to work on this in detail. Basically, what this slide is telling you is that EBRD is capable of doing anything from 5 to 300 million euros, starting with non-recourse long-term project finance, up to ordinary equity investments, local currency, capital markets transactions, PPPs, working capital, anything you want, we can offer pretty much. We are limited, so we have some limits as to what we can support. So on the left, you will see what we can finance. The projects need to be located in the country we operate in. They need to have good prospects for being profitable. Our shareholders require us to make a profit on a regular basis. They need to have significant skin in the game from the sponsors that invest in these projects, that they benefit the local economy, and of course, they are in line with our environmental mandate. On the other hand, in sectors like defense, tobacco, banned substances, gambling, etc., are not something that we would look at. In addition, what the last point is telling you in the long-winded way is that we are Paris aligned, so we will not finance any transaction that is not Paris aligned. These are very quickly, just to give you a snapshot of the sectors we cover. So these are all separate teams, and they have presence in headquarters, but also each of these teams is represented on the ground with staff from junior to senior. We also do have legal reform or legal transition team, as we call it. This was the team that Minister Kudratov mentioned, worked together with the Uzbek authorities on the new mining code. We have actually an SME business, including advisory. You will see in a second basically what our advisory team does in terms of results. This is our operations in 2024. This always slides for some reason. Basically, it highlights also some of the key projects that we are very proud to be involved in. Excuse me again. Especially the one referred to as hydrogen project is the first green hydrogen pilot in the region and makes Uzbekistan perhaps the 6th country in the world to have such a project. That's very unique. This is now in terms of our economic update. Maybe. I think yes. I don't know why. Okay, just to give you, then I will speak without the slide, but just to give you an idea. So this is EBRD overall countries. This is Central Asia in the middle, and this is Uzbekistan on the right. Sure, please, maybe. Because there isn't a lot left. This is the Q1 about the prospects. Yeah.
Go back. This one?
No, next one, please. So this is what I wanted to mention just simply when I said that we have an SME development team. They have supported actually more than 400 companies directly with advisory. And we have also digital online training channel, which has reached more than 80,000 entrepreneurs in Uzbekistan. We also have put, because SMEs are a big focus for us, we're not an SME financing bank directly, but we have put more than 300 million euros just last year, supporting certain groups like youth, women, SMEs outside of Tashkent, energy efficiency transactions and projects. And also we have a very big trade facilitation program of about 200 million euros a year that supports basically import-export operations for SMEs. If we can go to the previous slide, that would be the... So in terms of economic update, the global growth generally has been a bit subdued.
Guys, can you show me the slides, please, with a graph? Yes? And keep it. Thank you. I think use PDF or something. Yes, thank you. So the IT systems are complaining about sharing some of the data, apparently.
Yeah, I suppose maybe yes, there is some code protection in our own files. But basically, look, the overall is that if you see, so the bar on the right, the column on the left, sorry, will show you the average growth in EBRD countries. The one in the middle is Central Asia, and then on the right is Uzbekistan. So growth has been generally subdued. Globally and also in our countries of operations. We actually had in our latest economic update in September, we revised actually the growth prospects in the EBRD region by about 0.3%. This is issues of external demand, which is weak, regional conflicts, and in some countries also weak reform momentum. Central Asia is amongst our regions is probably the fastest growing, and we expect it to remain the fastest growing. It's benefited in recent years from intermediated trade, which remains quite high compared to the pre-war trade, but we do not expect that this will provide further growth in terms of further big growth. In 25, you see there is an acceleration increase in Central Asia. This is basically new infrastructure coming online for fossil fuels in Kazakhstan, and also Mongolia is going to be recovering from the very severe winter of last year where there was a lot of livestock losses. It's generally the Central Asian countries, they have similarities in that the growth is driven by domestic demand mainly, and they've seen an acceleration of inflation over the recent years, during the second half of last year especially, driven by demand side pressures, energy tariff increases, and also in some countries there was some moderate depreciation of the local currency against the US dollar. Now, however, we expect the Uzbekistan growth to remain strong. We're very proud that both in 2003 and 2004 we were the first to get bang on the head on the 6.5% growth, which is what we preliminarily expect for 24 as well. Slightly more subdued growth in 25 and 26, but still very strong. Helped basically by the fact that inflation has peaked and is coming down now. There is a decline in the current account deficit over the last year, to a certain extent also driven by the large remittances. And finally, there has been an ongoing fiscal consolidation helped by reducing energy subsidies on back of tariff hikes and other budgetary measures we expect will sort of like keep the expenditures in 2025 more restrained. I think this is sort of like for this slide, we can perhaps move on to the next one. This is basically the policy targets we have. We are also a policy institution for 25-26. We're working on irrigation sector reform, EV charging infrastructure. We're working together with the authorities on the law for the energy market regulator, which is very important. We have an MOU with the Ministry of Economy and Finance on cooperating for the decarbonization and greening of the economy of Uzbekistan. Capital markets is very important, so we're driving the process at the moment with the National Agency for Prospective Projects. And the big focus on that law is especially the ability of IFIs to be able to issue bonds in local currency. This is important because we have noticed, especially in the banking and the corporate sector, the demand for local currency is high. And at the moment, we obtain it through synthetic means, but it is more expensive, so we would like to get there. Finally, we're working together with Ministry of Economy and Finance on the SME Development Strategy and Action Plan, together with our multilateral colleagues from World Bank and ADB. And we're very focused on SOB transformation. This is Uzpromstroy and Osaka. These are two of the largest banks, very important, both in terms of the reflection, because the banking sector is the reflection of the economy of the country, but also as a signal to the foreign investors. Next one, please. On the left, you will see these are the strategic priorities of EBRD for Uzbekistan for the 24-29 period. And we have great collaboration. As many of you know, EBRD supports the Foreign Investors Council together with the Ministry of Investments, Industry and Trade. It's chaired by His Excellency President Mirziyoyev and co-chaired by our President Odile Renaud-Basson. And we expect that our partnership will grow further in the coming years. Next. And last, this is me.
Thank you very much, Andy. Indeed, I'll have some important questions for you later on. EBRD has been part of our economic update, in fact, for every year for the last 5 years. We very much loved Eric Livni, the chief regional economist, who was very helpful in every year in trying to really identify not only the growing EBRD role in the market, but also really the outlook. And then thank you very much for indeed presenting the data. Now we have here Ibrahim Kasim-Hadjaev, Head of Strategy Department at the Ministry of Economy and Finance of Republic of Uzbekistan. That's one serious title, I would say. Welcome, and thank you very much for being here. Deputy Minister Umit Abid Hadjaev unfortunately got flu, but we're very happy to have you here today. I'll give you your opening remarks, and then again we will try to come back to the questions. Try to keep to 5 to 8 minutes, colleagues, and then we will go into the questions. Thank you. Yes, officer, please go ahead. You just have to press the button there to open.
Thank you for your invitation, dear colleagues. Briefly, I want to talk about the economic achievements in 2024 and prospects for 2025 in terms of macroeconomic outlook. So, before talking about priorities of the macroeconomic policy, which are aligned to our national priorities, I would like to mention that the global economic growth is projected in 3.3%, which is less than, below than historical average. Historical average, 3.7% from 2020 to 2019. And economic policy uncertainty in the world has increased, especially on the trade and fiscal sector. Uzbekistan largely implements an adaptive and forward-thinking macroeconomic policy in line with the global challenges, while taking into account the specifics of the national economy and institutional environment. So, as a Ministry of Economy and Finance, we are seeking to harmonization between the fiscal consolidation and economic growth. We are also trying to prevent undesirable fluctuations in economic cycle. So recent years have become for our country a stage of rapid economic development and acceleration of deep market reforms. So in 2024, economy grew by, as it mentioned before, 6.5%, and GDP has reached $115 billion, and in GDP per capita, for the first time in history, exceeded $3,000 USD. And as a first priority for 2025, our goal is to maintain the high economic growth rates, ensuring that economy will grow no less than 6%. And our preliminary estimates show that GDP will reach $125 billion. It's over $3,300 GDP per capita. In this context, I should note that while the earlier goal for GDP was to reach $160 billion, as it mentioned in Uzbekistan 2030 strategy. So we identified that based on the existing capabilities and potential of the national economy, there are prospects to increase this figure up to $200 billion. In terms of GDP per capita, it's $5,000. So, also, past year was significant in terms of macroeconomic stability. Budget deficit kept below 4%. To be precise, the figure was 3.3% of GDP. Here I have to mention that the fiscal space is created not by increasing the tax burdens, but by rather improving the efficiency of the public financial management. And as a second priority for the Ministry of Economy and Finance in 2025 is to reducing the budget deficit by the figure of 3% of GDP. Also, I have to mention some brief information about monetary sector. Keeping the inflation within the single digit for past 2 years. In 2024, it was 9.8%, and exceeding the 41 billion of our foreign reserves confirms the effectiveness of the monetary policy. So the goal for 2025 is to keep the inflation rate at the level of 7-8%. So another positive trend that we can observe is the qualitative transformation of the economy. So if you look at the structure of economic development, 47% of the economic growth is mainly driven by the service sector, while 26% is driven by industry sector. So it's very important because that preliminary contribution of the economic growth is driven not by agriculture, as it was in the past, but by the expansion of the services and industrialization of the economy. As a first priority, I have to mention that we also aim to ensure inclusiveness and diversification of the drivers of economic forces. So in 2024, we have adopted the program from poverty to well-being program and institutionalized the principles of 7 opportunities and responsibilities for low-income families. So, as a result of these actions and reforms, the poverty rate in 2024 reduced from 11% to 8.9%, and our target for 2025 is to reduce the poverty rate up to 6%. One thing that I want to mention as well, the achievements has been highly recognized by international organizations, and despite the complex geopolitical landscape, our sovereign rating was kept at BB-, which is stable. And so here, what I wanted to say, and thank you for inviting me one more time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, important information. I'll have some follow-up questions. But before that, Celeste Laporte, policy analyst at OECD, I'd like to give you an opportunity to tell us about most recent information that you have and also the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oybek. Hello, everyone. Hello, Ambassador, Minister, colleagues. Thank you so much, Oybek, for inviting me for this event. So today, let me actually share my presentation first. Can you see it?
1 second, they're putting it up. Yes, we can see it now.
Perfect. Thank you again. So today I'd like to share with you some findings of our ongoing work on Uzbekistan. First related to trade and transport connectivity, and then I'll speak about another project on investment policy. So in terms of connectivity, we're currently drafting a report which looks at the private sector's perspective on improvements and bottlenecks on the Trans-Caspian transport corridor in the past 2 years. We've conducted around 150 interviews with EU and local companies in Central Asia, including in Uzbekistan. And the report looks at 4 dimensions in particular: transport infrastructure, regional cooperation, soft trade measures, and sustainability. If we delve into the first topics in particular, overall the picture is very dynamic in the region, especially in Uzbekistan, with a trend of further regional integration, infrastructure upgrades, especially in roads, and a major railway announced. If we talk about Uzbekistan in particular, private sector respondents noticed undeniable progress in transport infrastructure. They mentioned in particular road improvements with specific mention of Karakol, Pakistan. There are also very high expectations on the potential of the upcoming China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan railway. And another very positive development relates to significant increase in warehouse capacity in Central Asia. So we know there is actually a very high deficit of storage capacity in the region. But in Uzbekistan, there was a 165% increase in high quality warehouse space last year. So that's very impressive. In terms of regional cooperation, it was actually very encouraging to hear from private sector respondents from neighboring countries. So in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan, that there are infrastructure upgrades at border crossing points in Uzbekistan, and that results in faster crossings. But a major issue for the region relates to visa obtention for Turkmenistan. So the process for getting a visa for Central Asian drivers is very long, and since Turkmenistan aims to play a more active role as a transit hub, in our view, it's critical to ensure that there is a expedited visa delivery process. In terms of considerations for action going forward, so we're seeing that the private sector massively turns to road infrastructure, but they report low quality of intercity infrastructure in Uzbekistan in particular, so that deserves specific attention. And the fact that they also rely more on road infrastructure is because they mention aging railway infrastructure. So renewing rolling stock is mandated. Now talking about the second topics of interest of the report related to soft connectivity and sustainability. Our key message here is that customs procedures are being harmonized and digitalized, but it's still causing a lot of headaches because there are still interoperability issues. So, for instance, countries of the region apply a certain standards for weight and dimensions of trucks, but Uzbekistan follows different standards that are actually in line with the EU's. But this is just a small example to explain why it's challenging for companies to deliver their goods and transit efficiently on the Trans-Caspian transport corridor. Also, in terms of digitalization, there is still the issue that companies are required to submit both digital and paper documents. So actually, digitalization is not is supposed to fasten the process, but if you're still required to submit paper-based documents, then it's just a duplication. Another point of attention is the fact that there are few cargo insurance solutions. So companies have to search for different solutions in each transit country. So perhaps there should be a consultation at the Central Asian level on minimum standards of insurance, so companies have more predictability on what needs to be insured and also which market players can provide such solutions. A very important point also that is a key bottleneck is what are commonly called dazvoli in the region. So these are transit permits that are allocated by ministries of transport in each the country of the region. But the process of allocating those dazvoli is not very clear. And towards the end of the year, they tend to run out. So there is, we've heard that some companies are hoarding those dazvoli, and there is some secondary market like for reselling dazvoli, which is actually an obstacle to transit and trade.
Celeste, we are a little bit behind on the time. I will ask you a little bit
sorry,
if you
okay.
could speed up. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So I'll just wrap up with this. Something that's actually also very positive is the sustainability aspect. So we see that Uzbekistan is at the forefront in the region with massive infrastructure investment in renewable energy. And we're also seeing that among private sector respondents, which are relying more and more on electric vehicles, less emissive trucks, and they're also trying to meet Euro emission standards when it comes to vehicle fleet. The last point I would like to mention is our ongoing project that we're conducting with the Ministry of Investment, Industry and Trade, which is a review of Uzbekistan's investment policy. In the interest of time, I will not describe too much this project since it's still very much work in progress. But I think the key messages I would like to convey is that very massive efforts have been undertaken to improve the business climate and attract green and socially responsible investment. So as I was mentioning, FDI in renewable energies increased eightfold actually over the last decade. And there are really very much efforts being made to make the legal framework more transparent. Sorry for running a bit out of time. Thank you so much for your attention, and I remain available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Celeste. Indeed, I will also have a few follow-ups, but in the meantime, Davida, thank you very much for joining this. I know you are very remote today and very much appreciated. Welcome, and I will give the opportunity to make your introductory remarks.
Thank you. I would like to say thanks to EUROUZ for organizing and inviting us. I hope you can hear me well. I would like also to thank the Minister and Ambassador for their opening remarks. Is loud and clear?
It's perfect. Yes, indeed.
Okay. Thank you very much. So now it's my pleasure for being here. Thanks for inviting EIB. And I would like just, in fact, to touch upon a point that was mentioned about EIB representation. In fact, our colleague of external action representation have been accelerating the negotiation with Minister of Foreign Affairs, and it looks that we are getting closer. So hopefully soon also this important step will be done. Apologies for not being able to be in Tashkent in person at the moment. I was there in January, and I will be back in March, accompanying Commissioner Sikela, as mentioned by Ambassador, that will travel all across Central Asia, and it will be a pleasure also to, of course, visit Tashkent in that occasion. In fact, to foster also the dialogue and to continue the cooperation, we have already organized a meeting the 3rd of March with Vice President Kakouris in Luxembourg, together with Ambassador for Brussels and Luxembourg, to prepare the tour of the Commissioner in Central Asia. And I prepared a very brief presentation also to go through. I will do it. I think once I share my screen, I will not be able to see the room anymore. So I will be brief and then I will get back. Okay. So I hope you can see the screen.
Are you going to share the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. You will need to do it on your end.
Yes.
And then we will see it. Colleagues, you can bring it up once he shares the screen, please. Yes.
Now it should be with you, and I will put it bigger.
Perfect. We can see that. Thank you.
Okay, great. So just very briefly, EIB Global is the part of European Investment Bank dedicated to non-European activity. Also, European Investment Bank closed the year with a record year with 88 billion of signatures, out of which 10%, so roughly 8 billion, are represented for signatures outside the European Union. I will go very quickly through EIB target sector for 2025. They are valid for all Central Asia, but in particular for Uzbekistan. And what is important here to highlight, European Investment Bank is the financial arm of European Commission, European Union in particular. We are aligned with European Commission and the European delegation in Tashkent on the focus. So the first most important is water, energy, and environment, a very traditional objective that we have been pursuing throughout the last decade, and we are continuing on it. Second, not less important, Trans-Caspian transport corridors. Third, connectivity and digitalization. And fourth, critical raw material. In particular, we have an ongoing advanced project preparation on the RLC and together with AFD. This activity is split in two legs. So we have one on land restoration and afforestation, which is quite advanced, and the other one, which is now at feasibility study with the modernization of Sueli irrigation in the Republic of Karakal, Pakistan, as well with AFD. The Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor, we signed a memorandum of understanding with Uzbekistan Minister of Transport in Brussels on January last year for 500 million, and now we are focusing in particularly on road projects for rehabilitation and construction. During January, we had a very interesting session with MIIT colleagues and a road committee at MIIT headquarters, where we started to highlight and focus on specific projects that we hope to develop during this year. Fourth, very important, energy efficiency with public buildings under the umbrella of Felicity 2 project, which is shared together with colleagues of GIZ, helping us on technical assistance and project preparation. Very important here, I will share with you, EIB Group has just released a catalog. I will not go through the details now, but if you have the opportunity to click on the link and go in it, it's a very detailed picture on how EIB can support through lending, guarantees, and advisory. There are various products that we can do. In several things, of course, we are similar to what Andy just described on EBRD, and some other parts we are a little bit different. So if you have time, I really suggest that you go through it. Okay. Yeah, I will just for the moment pause it here, and I guess we can go through more details in exchange of questions.
Indeed. Thank you very much, David. It's good to have EIB in Uzbekistan and increasing your presence. Again, building on the experience of EBRD, coming into this market and really becoming one of the most important markets within the EBRD portfolio. We are looking forward to also see the same for the EIB ultimately. Now, I want to have a very brief discussion between us in order to make sense and context of what we have so far presented. IFIs, and Andy, I will start with you. IFIs have played a very large role in Uzbekistan's economic development in the past 7 years, and the EBRD was really here in force and growing very fast. But now we are entering into a new phase of reforms, drawing on the experience globally. How could development finance specifically support sustainable and inclusive growth in Uzbekistan? Because ultimately, now that the momentum is there, we have to think about those things. And again, could you comment whether you have work in this direction and whether you think that Uzbekistan could do more as well? Thank you.
No, thank you, Aybek. It's a very good question, actually, and it's true that the development financial institutions, they have supported the growth of Uzbekistan over the last few years. There has been certain areas where the focus has been quite big, and I think some of these are also important going forward. So the first that I would mention is the work on renewables. So Uzbekistan has been, let's say, a poster child not only for the region, but also for many of, at least, not only the Central Asia region, but throughout EBRD's countries of operations, how you develop the renewable sector. There was a lot of work, I think, and collaboration between the authorities and various multilateral institutions. For example, on the solar side, there was a lot of collaboration to organize the first auctions with ADB and IFC. On the wind side, it's been with EBRD, and there have been some outstanding results for this. So we know that Uzbekistan has some of the lowest tariffs when it comes to renewables globally. Why is this important? This is important because at the end of the day, not only are renewables green, but they are the cheapest form of energy at the moment. So the more renewables we have, the cheaper the energy we have for the people and for the businesses. If we simply compare just what we have as tariffs at the moment in renewable projects, it's usually up to 3 US cents, which is below the price that socially vulnerable groups pay for electricity. And there is obviously an ongoing effort to make the tariffs cost reflective, but this job will become easier the more renewables we have. And in that respect, I was very, I think, pleasantly surprised by His Excellency President Mirziyoyev in December. We had been discussing for a while with the Uzbek authorities a target of 40 to 45% renewable share by 2030, and I think he took everybody by surprise when he declared a 54% target. So going forward, I think financing of renewables and the construction of renewable projects is going to be important, also in the context of regional and also EU integration. We have heard out of COP29 the idea of the green corridor between Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Azerbaijan to export green energy to Europe. So this is, I think, another increasing the renewable share is going to be important. Second, I think what the development institutions do well, most of us, is supporting SME growth, and we will continue to do this going forward. So there is, the SMEs are usually the engine of employment. They may not produce the lion's share of the GDP, but they do produce the lion's share of employment. And in the SME space, especially in the countries that are developing at this stage, there's a lot of opportunities, but there are also a lot of groups that are underserved, undersupported. We have, for example, as EBRD specifically, credit lines for partner banks for businesses led by women, business led by youth, with technical support to help them develop their business plans, to help the banks themselves reach out to this type of businesses more. Davide mentioned public building energy efficiency. EBRD specializes in residential and private buildings because at the end of the day, that's where usually about 40% of our energy is lost in that area. So SME development is going to be a very important area going forward. We did about 300 million euros last year, and we intend to keep growing it gradually. The third area I would mention is privatization of state-owned banks. This is something where we are focused very heavily. We're collaborating with IFC and ADB on the privatization of Uzpromstroy, SQB. And we as EBRD also have an agreement with the government, with the Ministry of Economy and Finance to work on the transformation and privatization of Asaka Bank. Why do I say that? Because one, the banks are usually the reflection of the economy. The more we have in private hands, the more we can also support the private sector to grow. And this is very important. These are two key things. If we achieve the privatization of these two banks, we will have achieved what I think is a tectonic shift in the banking sector, because then banking will become, for the first time, majority private owned. That's very important. A fourth area, I think that, and I will leave it there because we can talk a lot, where we would support is critical raw materials. So this is something of interest to EU companies that can further the collaboration between Uzbekistan and EU, but also the Uzbek growth. The Minister Kudratov mentioned the mining code, which was prepared with our support. We do also focus now, we're cooperating with the Ministry of Geology to see how we can go into secondary legislation for this, regulations, e-permitting, and it is our intention over the next coming month to work together with them to test how the mining code is going to work in practice by bringing perhaps the first 2 or 3 mineral reserves to a type of concession, type of tender, where obviously European companies will also have the possibility to participate. We feel that that is a sector, given how rich Uzbekistan is in minerals, this is an area for big and sustainable growth. I'll stop it here because I can talk about a lot of other things.
Thank you very much indeed. I think some of the things you said were music to some of the Finnish companies' ears, which are listening to this. Isham is indeed supporting this event as well, and is a very big chamber, which is a sister chamber in Finland. Now coming to Ibrahim, coming to you on the same subject, sustainable economic growth. It's the pace of reform of Uzbekistan. It has been impressive, right? But ongoing economic reforms, achieving sustainability is critical, and inclusivity as well. What are your key priorities as a ministry and initiatives this year? I'd like to also see what are the targeted outcomes in this particular sustainability and inclusivity when it comes to economic growth. Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to add that key strategic priorities in terms of sustainability have been incorporated in State Development Program for 2025, and there are like 286 practical measures, and along with development, approximately 100 regulatory and legal documents. So I just want to briefly point main of them. So first one, we want to develop and formulate the low carbon transition strategy up to 2015. Sorry. As you said, like regarding the target, the share of renewable energy is expected to reach 26% in 2025. For reference, in 2024 it was 16%. To fill that number, it's equivalent to 64% of of electricity consumption by population. It's like at 12.7 billion kilowatts. And the next third, our target is to develop and create a national program for enhancing the green financing system. And the main point there is to create a Uzbekistan Green Economy Fund. Firstly, in order to integrate our country into international carbon markets, the Ministry of Economy and Finance is working on formulating the legal framework for a cap and trade system and for the carbon trade. So these are like 4 main objects to maintain the sustainable growth.
Excellent. I'll have a follow-up to that, but before that, let me jump to Celeste. Celeste, OECD has been a very big player when it comes to supporting Uzbekistan in research, in really analysis of a lot of data. I want before coming back, let's say to a macro level on your work, what I want to come back to the audience is, could you briefly share a little bit more on what OECD does and how you engage with Uzbekistan broadly? And then later on I will jump into a specific question. Thank you.
Thanks for this question, Oybek. The first thing I would like to mention is that Uzbekistan OECD cooperation has been increasing very steadily in the past few years. And essentially, our cooperation revolves around supporting the government with public policy research, analysis, advice with concrete recommendations, and supporting the implementation of those recommendations. We also invite Uzbekistan to participate in high-level policy dialogue with other countries of the region, but also with OECD countries. So just to give you a concrete example, 2 weeks ago, we had an event in Paris on questions of green growth. And we are actually starting a new project on critical raw minerals. And we had gathered high-level stakeholders from the ministries of geology, energy, industry of the 5 Central Asian countries to share OECD best practices in terms of fiscal policy in the area of critical raw minerals, environmental management and mitigating environmental risks and responsible business conduct. So that's how we foster high-level policy dialogue. In terms of areas, we've been supporting the government in several policy domains. So more historically in private sector development, the legal environment for business. I also mentioned our project on the investment policy review of Uzbekistan together with ADB. We are working on topics around trade and transport connectivity. So I presented briefly our ongoing research on the topic. We are also working on public governance. We recently released a report on how the government can make policy making and institutional arrangements more efficient for policy delivery. And tax policy, I mean, we have several areas, but in a nutshell, it's policy advice, fostering high-level policy dialogue, and supporting reform implementation.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I wanted to get this information out into the private sector, because what we often notice is that OECD is very active, very efficient, and yet they don't really advertise their work. And indeed, they have been a very strong partner for the government in the ongoing reforms. And I believe that highlighting this is also very important. David, coming back to you also now, the European Investment Bank, you mentioned some of the projects that you are starting to implement. But could you just very briefly also, because there's over 100 people still online as well here in the room, we have around 50. What is the value that EIB brings to the table and with initiative to Central Asia, and maybe how it really differentiates maybe from other international financial organizations which are present? Thank you. Already on the market.
Thank you for your question. And indeed, the European Investment Bank would like mainly to share the more than 65 years old experience developed in Europe. In fact, European Investment Bank have been effectively supporting sustainable development in Europe, growing as much as European Union was growing, and then started to mutuate the same knowledge developed within the continent for outside Europe activity. And the bank have been leading in green and digital transition, which are two of the mainstream that we are following now. We are sharing the very large experience that our engineers have. In fact, we have more than 400 engineers dedicated to specific sectors such as water, energy efficiency, roads, railways, and they are able to put their knowledge available inside the continent, in Europe, in Italy, in France, as much as they can operate in sectors outside Europe. But also one very important ability of EIB, and this is the reason why it was created in the beginning, is to finance very large infrastructure that they overcome the borders of a single country. For example, we are already in the same pool of potential financiers of something very large, such as the Cambarata project, which is a regional project, or the satellites projects that have been done with SES from my colleagues. So the idea is to bring, leadership in green and digital transition, but also to bring a regional perspective.
Thank you very much, David. Now, what I want to do is, because we are running out of time, and I want to make sure that our members and partners, they have the opportunity in 15 minutes to also have a networking event in order to meet each other and to discuss. So now, what I want to see, if there are any questions in the audience, I could. So we have here one question. We could maybe pose that, and then if we have a little bit of time, I will give you 1 minute to make your conclusions. Thank you. You can introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm François Béjot from Economic Chamber of France-Uzbekistan. I have a simple question, which for sure there is a huge progress in Uzbekistan of reform, economic growth, but there is also a huge challenge, which is demographic growth. Every year, 1 million babies born in Uzbekistan. The natural increase is about 800,000 people, which is enormous, and this may be hampering economic growth. So how do you see the problem for now, but also in the future? You know, these people will get older, and in 20 years, aging will become a problem in Uzbekistan, as it is in other developing world. So I think this question of demography is very important and is never taken into account into sustainable development. Sustainable development means also.
Thank you very much,
François.
Would you like to take this question, Ibrahim, maybe?
So, as I have mentioned before, as a fourth priority for the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economy and Finance, we aim to ensure inclusivity and diversification of the driver of economic growth. And here, notably, that I have to mention that in 2024, several significant policy measures were implemented. More than 5.2 billion citizens were employed in permanent or seasonal temporary jobs. And 3 million people were attracted into business against 2 million as it was planned. So, and as I have mentioned, we have adopted the program from poverty to well-being program. And so by nowadays, most importantly, our each reform is implemented on the basis of comprehensive approach in regional development, increasing so decreasing the unemployment and increasing the income of population, and also the gaining of demographic dividend from the poverty reduction, I would say. So of course we take into consideration the demographic aspects of nowadays current situation while we make some projections or making some policy making. So
thank you very much. If anybody else would like to address this, I think it's indeed it's extremely important question. And again, we are also, Central Asia is one of the youngest regions in the world, and we are I think over 70% under 30. You know, this is an extremely important aspect of economic development. If anybody else would like to ask a question in person here, we have questions online, but they are very long, and I would, you know, I would not read that out to not lose so much time. If there are any shorter questions, Shazadbek, that you would like to, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. There is a question on privatization of state-owned banks. The online attendance, Artur Abif, is asking about what are the timelines for the privatization of state-owned banks. And he says that I understand the discussion have been going for a few years and IFRS have been already completed.
Thank you very much. Andy, perhaps this is for you.
Yes, of course. Look, the question is, obviously we want this to happen as soon as possible. Having said that, it's also quite important to transform the banks so that we can achieve also maximum benefit both for the consumers but also for the for the authorities, because these banks are state-owned and we need to basically transfer them to private investors on good terms. One excellent example, actually, which has already taken place in Uzbekistan, was the privatization of Ipoteka Bank to an EU bank, to OTP from Hungary. That, I believe, took, and maybe the colleague from the ministry can correct me if I'm wrong, but it took somewhere between 3 and 4 years. So it takes some time. We need to change basically the way of thinking, the governance, risk management, which is essentially a very important part of this. So I would say basically there are efforts and we would like to do it quicker if we can, but I would say that perhaps a 3-year time span is an ideal one to achieve this. That would be just my view.
Thank you very much. Indeed, so it's a complex process, and you have to do that in a very transparent way. So that creates additional complexities. I know that the Ministry of Economy and Finance and the Central Bank are working very hard to support the state-owned banks, and now the boards have been introduced a few years ago with independent board members, and we see that there is progress. But indeed, it takes much more time than even initially anticipated, I believe, by the government. But that's a good thing, because that means that we are doing that in a very transparent, open, and thorough way, and ultimately this is what you want to achieve. So are there still any other questions in the room? If not, what I will do, doesn't look like. So what I will do, I will ask you a short question to which I would like to have a short answer, please. So 1.5 minutes, at maximum 2 minutes, you will have for each question. And Andy, I will start with you, because there's one very important piece of data that you showed, but also in the market. I mean, people are talking about Uzbekistan is information cannot stay hidden here for long, and that's about your commitment and interest in equity investments of the bank in Uzbekistan. You already have invested into a few very large, very successful Uzbek companies. So could you very briefly, in 1.5 minutes, comment on whether and how the equity investments of EBRD would potentially grow in Uzbekistan?
Yes, so we are very prudent. As I mentioned, one of the key things, or the number one criteria that shareholders have put our mission for us, is profitability. In that respect, we're a little bit different from other development banks. So we look for very good opportunities. We investigate them thoroughly, but we also try to go in at an early stage when obviously it's riskier, and we help them grow. One such example has been Korzinka. So we came, they have tripled in terms of business size over the past 3-4 years, and we expect them to triple again in the next 3 to 4 years. So there are opportunities that we need to take. I think this is a very entrepreneurial country. In fact, Uzbek entrepreneurs do remind me of my own compatriots back home in Albania, who believe that they can do anything regardless of how complicated and risky it is. So of course the appetite is there, and we keep looking for opportunities, but we always have to be careful, bring in our experience, bring in basically proper governance, ESG, grow the companies. Who knows? Look, at this point in time, the Uzbek capital markets are not very developed, but at a certain point we would like also to get this to a stage where some of these investee companies we go in, they can go for an IPO.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And now I will jump to you very quickly, Celeste. One of the things that you mentioned, of course, in the data that you have found is the improvement of the roads infrastructure that was noted. But I want to refer to 2019 report that was put out by OECD and will also be available on our website. So all the presentation will be available on our website, on the event website where you registered, in fact, is that Uzbekistan, in order to just keep the transit capacity of 2019, Uzbekistan needed to increase transit capacity of roads by 500%. And to build 1,778 new highways. And again, after that, the global situation has changed, and the pressure on Central Asia in terms of connectivity has substantially increased. So jumping to where we are today, our current transport infrastructure investments in Uzbekistan and Central Asia maybe broader, sufficient in terms of meet the growing demand? So again, it's a complex question to answer in 1.5 minutes, but please try.
Thanks, Olbek. In a nutshell, no. So we can clearly see infrastructure upgrades across all modes of transport, road, as I mentioned, rail, new rail projects are announced. Port infrastructure is being developed in Kazakhstan. Turkmenbashi is registering more traffic. But we are still seeing on the ground that congestion is increasing despite those infrastructure upgrades. And that's also because that reflects the larger trend of traffic increasing along the Caspian transport corridor. So just like last year, the volume of goods increased by 63%. So in a nutshell, I would say that we cannot deny the progress, but the traffic is increasing faster than infrastructure upgrades. And the main issue lies with multiple border crossings, insufficient regional coordination, and probably the lack also of a coherent multimodal development strategy. So how to better ensure cargo flows between different types of infrastructure, so rail to port, for example. So I would say that significant additional investments and reforms are needed to bridge the gap between the needs and the efforts.
Thank you very much, Celeste. And indeed, so we are very happy to see as European also investors and companies that PPP projects are popping up in the road division, and we see that there is a big tender actually now which is up. But I will come back to you. Let me give you the final word maybe. But before that, I want to just very quickly jump to you, Davide, to say that the EU Central Asia Connectivity Conference that happened in January 2024 announced a 10 billion investment to enhance transport infrastructure in Central Asia, so staying on this subject. Given this substantial, of course, understanding it's a very long-term investment, but also early milestones that you already some presented, what do you think potentially the role of EIB could be in and how fast you could deploy in order to support Uzbekistan in building up that infrastructure gap?
Thank you for your question. Indeed, it's very important, and you already highlighted the long-term relationship, but it's fundamental to start somewhere, and this is the reason why among various subsector in transport, we decided to focus on roads, which we think are the main source of infrastructure. Nothing to take away on railways, but roads are the one that we decided to focus at the moment, and particularly on two main parts of the road. So rehabilitation as a very first step to improve what is already there, and it can be improved in terms of size and quality, and also the construction, so to improve the ways that we can use to get to the Caspian Sea. And in terms of timing, my mission in January was quite successful. The discussion we had with MIIT and the road committee were very fruitful. So now, if the cooperation continue, we might even be able to close one or two projects within the end of this year. Depends, of course, on how we can integrate the feasibility studies that have been produced and how fast we can continue on the, let's say, administrative tasks. But I think already within this year, we can start to transform the memorandum of understanding into actual projects.
Thank you very much, David. And now, Ibrahim, finishing up this discussion and coming back to you with some of the things that you have heard here today. But what I want to ask maybe to finish with is with a question of what opportunities the Ministry of Economy and Finance could identify in the private sector, given, again, the context of these discussions, the PPPs, that you should really drive the message to the participants of this event. And again, this will be online. A lot of people will still watch it. So what would you recommendations and the framework of the policies be where the private sector should really pay attention and look at? Thank you.
So thank you for your question. I would like to add that regarding to PPP projects, we have approved national PPP project pipeline up to 2030. And this pipeline includes a portfolio of PPP projects over $30 billion. And also, Uzbekistan offers multiple entry points for investors. So international companies can participate in open competitive tenders with ongoing bids in a project such as Tashkent-Andijan Highway Road, also hospital in Fergana, and electricity distribution system in Samarkand. So also, I have to say that by PPP legislation and law, we have current legislation law allows for the private initiatives the Swiss challenge mechanism, in which investors are welcomed to propose their own projects. So I have to mention that it creates more flexibility for construction the investment portfolios, and it gives broader opportunities for investors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is very important to get this information out there as well, and to maybe receive more information that we can put out to members and to other companies. Because proposing new project, if the investor comes, and especially smaller investments, we have a lot of European investments which are under 100 million. Companies that come into Uzbekistan that want to consider investment much smaller, and they had difficulty in the past. If a mechanism would be available for them to propose projects, that would be a very big step forward, certainly. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been very patient, especially those who are here. I know that this is a very somewhat technical event, but again, getting this information out, we tried to make a really 360-degree view of where the specifics are, to give you really the opportunity to see Uzbekistan's economic situation with the latest data. Some of it will come out, and again, we will put it up as soon as it comes out for the EBRD annual document, but also for members. I mean, you are members. Thank you for making this happen. You know, we are here to support you, and it's a great pleasure. Thank you very much, our dear speakers. You are very busy to get your time to speak and to participate here. It's greatly appreciated, and again, online, to anybody who is watching us, thank you very much. We will put all the information up, and I will conclude this event, and we'll have a small networking reception here for those who are physically present. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.